appreciate that aspect of it, and especially the community for grounding me in that. So blessings to everyone here, and thank you, Charles, for the course.
Okay, so hi everyone. I think I have to restart because I forgot to press the streaming button. So, yeah. Hi everyone, this is Patsy Eisenstein, and welcome you again. This is a repeat. We just have a little glitch, forgot to press the start button. Welcome you all to the last session of Living in the Gift 2021, and I would like to first thank our facilitating team on live chat, Nori, Connie, and Lee, and maybe some other members who are there to interact with you, and all of you, welcome you with my whole heart. And right now I want to also bring up Shivani to say a few words to everyone. So here you go, Shivani.
Hi, thank you. Yeah, I was just had said before and say again, I just really appreciate the course, of course, and really valued the connection and the community and the conversation circles and getting to know people more personally. It was just a gift to be with everyone, and I look forward to just bringing along further on NAS and keeping our connections going and getting to know each other deeper. And thank you, Charles and Patsy, and everyone.
Thank you. And Todd, would you like to say a few words?
I think we did go live, Patsy, so I'll just be very short and say much gratitude, Charles, for the course and this entire community. Again, thank you.
Well, guess what? Good appreciation is like a good meal. Is so.
Oh my gosh, we're all laughing now here. It's like Patsy's like, am I fired? So now we don't know like who's heard what and everything, but we're having fun here, and we all love Patsy so much, and Todd and Shivani. Yeah, I'm feeling so grateful just even to be in this field of all being devoted to the same thing that we recognize when we see it, even if we can't always name what it is, but then it's like, there it is. So yeah, really grateful for you guys. Yeah. Okay. And Patsy, we'll talk after this session.
Aw. Okay, so we have a lot of wonderful questions, and some are challenging, and in fact in our time those challenging questions really bring out truth and beauty and really help us to check in to ourselves and with one another, like what do we want in our life, so I'm very excited about that. So so our first guest.
Wait. Can I just say a little thing first?
Sure.
Yeah, hopefully you guys can't hear the lawnmower outside. I've arranged with my neighbor to mow his grass every time that we have a live call, just to bring the gift of practicing patience to all of us. I hope you appreciate that. Yeah. But what I wanted to say, and just also to kind of give a nod to the elephant in the room, which is all the controversy recently that's sprung up around my work. It's, I mean, at moments it's looked like, wow, like my whole career is falling apart. I'm getting canceled from all these things. Like Facebook considers me a dangerous person, and like my publisher like repudiated me and everything. And I was like, when I don't know if probably a lot of people have had this experience when things fall away, what is left is the things that don't fall away, the things that are really important. And I've just had in the last few days so many incredible experiences of gratitude. Last evening, we took our 8-year-old son, Carrie. Stella and I took Carrie to the beach, and there he was, like we were just standing there, and he was out in the waves, frolicking in the waves, and I was like, wow, I get to experience this. Such a beautiful moment. And I've had like so many of these moments of intense gratitude. And that it brought to mind someone who wrote on the forum about, hey, Charles, this seems to be so much about giving. What about receiving? And I really want to, what it brought to mind was all the things that people do, that I do even, or especially, to not receive. The person in that comment thread gave the example of when someone gives them something, like they're like already rushing to see how they can pay the person back or how they can give it forward or something like that. And maybe I've experienced that too, when like someone would give me a compliment, I would often brush it off. Like, Charles, your work has changed my life. Okay. And I'll be like, oh, but that was really you, just too quickly to push it away. So really, early at the beginning of the course, I said, gratitude is the feeling of having received, the full feeling of having received, but it's also a gateway to fully receiving. Because like that experience at the beach with my son, like that was happening. That gift was offered to me. And it is only with gratitude that I fully receive that gift. And then I am so deeply nourished that I have the capacity to give forward. Because obviously giving and receiving have to be in balance, because we're not the ultimate source of the gift. We are the vessel of the gift. We're the transmission station of the gift. So yeah, and I would also just add that to fully receive is also an act of generosity, because it creates the desire, obligation, and even necessity to give in turn. So by fully receiving, you're also affirming, yep, I'm going to be in this play of giving and receiving. I'm going to be fully in this world. I agree to be in debt to the world because I acknowledge having so richly received. I affirm that I am this vessel of giving and receiving. So to not fully receive can be a way, and this is how I've often used it, can be a way to kind of stand back from life a little bit, to not be fully present in the world, to not fully accept life. I mean, really, that's the ultimate act of receiving, is to receive life itself, to step into this realm fully, to accept the gift of creation, you could say. So yeah, so I'm really happy that this topic of receiving was brought up, and just wanted to also share with you, where I am right now. It's been quite an extraordinary time, and I'm really happy to be able to share some of that with you. So back to you, Patsy.
Okay, we're gonna bring up Haika. So Haika is another very wonderful member in our community, and she made some wonderful observations and questions in the gift course. She lives in Hong Kong, right? So Haika, thank you for getting up so early to join us, and I welcome you, and I'd like to have you and Charles have this conversation of your story and sharings. Thank you.
Thank you, Patsy. Hi, Charles.
Hi.
I'd like to say, first of all, that the course just came at the right time for me, because it's quite a challenging time, and it's not the only one, but it's one of the lifesavers that I'm hugely grateful for at the moment. And the question I asked was around the synchronicity and sacrifice modules. I'll just call up the question so I get everything in. So it's around fear. And I was wondering if you have any suggestions around the work with fear that arises when you're basically willing and you have enough courage to hazard yourself in a difficult world. And that obviously creates a huge amount of vulnerability. And for me, like presencing and being kind to myself is a kind of the obvious things, but I thought maybe you have something more to say about it. And so I was actually practicing sacrifice and being open to synchronicity pretty intensely and intentionally, and I've had pretty amazing results. However, I still have these, I know, waves of fear come up sometimes, fear and doubt. Yes, but specifically around around letting go the need and the drive to try and control that my hopes and my desires will somehow be fulfilled. And I know if I do that, that I can, become more open to fulfilling my potential. But yeah, as I said, the fear just pops up every now and again. And yeah, and as I was writing that, it was interesting that tears were coming up, and that I could feel two things. There was like a part that was happy and excited, and then again that I guess that the fear that got instilled through my parents, through our society, through the scarcity mindset. And I do have a sense of some basic trust and some, I guess I'd call it natural courage, which I think is essential. Otherwise, I probably couldn't do it. And yeah, I just mentioned that I'm recently having a huge life change, and I kind of know that I need to take things slowly and trust. But for me personally, what comes up specifically is a fear around being alone and never again being belonging to anything ever again. And so a little bit of backstory. A lot of people in the NAS community know I'm basically going to leave Hong Kong, and I have no idea what I'm going to do. I'm just following some synchronicities and offers. I had to go to the States for 3 months, and yeah, that's that's what I'm doing. And I have no idea how my life's going to pan out from here on.
Wow. Heike, thank you for sharing that, where you're at right now. Yeah, I mean, this is not about bulldozing over fear. Fear has a beautiful and sacred function in life to maintain us in a world. Like if I'm driving my car over icy roads, I have fear, and the fear helps me focus on staying safe. Sometimes, though, a fear becomes obsolete. It doesn't feel protective anymore. It feels limiting. And you'll notice a readiness in yourself and a sense of adventure. And I think all of us can hear in your voice, like there's some of that, like you're kind of excited for this incredible adventure that you're having. You're letting go into the unknown. You're gonna, like, everything's gonna change, and there's a readiness there. And that readiness coexists with some fear, but it seems like fear that you're kind of done with. And maybe there's other fears that you're not done with, and that they're still protecting you. And listening to those fears is called being prudent. And so it's not, yeah, this is not the war against fear. I think this might have even been in the meditations, like, what am I ready to let go of? And this is not what can I make myself be ready to let go of so that I can live in this glorious world of gift and synchronicity? It's just actually like being honest. What am I actually ready to let go of? Where's that readiness that coexists with the fear? And yeah, I feel kind of like giving you a send-off into the adventure. And yeah, we'll be, I hope you keep everybody on NAS posted, you know, what the adventure brings. But you look ready to me, and brave.
Thank you.
And yeah, Haika, one of the things that I noticed with the fear is like the more you let it, the more you express it and let it be visible, uh, the more you get to process it. I have a experience with fear. I used to be a very fearful person, and one time the life pushed me to a point where I couldn't hide behind anything but to be with that fear. And I thought I was gonna die from having the fearful vibration in my body. And then, but what I discovered was that it just dissipates when you get to an extreme point. So I thought that, so from that point on, I no longer fear what I thought I fear. So I want to, share that with you and then encourage you to use our community as a processing place for us to hold you through your next journey before you. We love you.
Thank you very much, Patsy.
So do you feel complete, Heike?
Yeah, I guess so. It just feels like I'm kind of surfing a wave sometimes, and then I fall off my surfboard, and then I've got to get back on again. That's the kind of feeling I have. But yeah, both your Charles's and your words have encouraged me. Thank you very much. And thank you to the community. They've already been hugely supportive.
Yeah, thank you too. See you back at NAS home, our home. See you. So Charles, next friend, his name is Claudio, and he's from Sweden. And he recently moved to United States and been living here for 3 years. And when I heard that, oh, Claudio, I think you need to turn off your speaker or
Just mute for a
detach.
second here. Yeah.
But if he doesn't detach that, this whole conversation would have that feedback.
No, it won't. Zoom will figure it out. It'll. Don't worry about it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So anyway, so when I heard Claudio moved to the United States, I thought, oh wow, it's very interesting. Like people still want to move to the United States, and he had an awesome perspective that I thought it was really refreshing. So that's why we have invited him here today to speak with us. So thank you, Claudio. Welcome you, and I'm gonna turn off my video so you can talk with Charles.
Yeah.
Hi, everyone.
Hey, Claudio.
My name is Claudio. Hi, Charles. I'm very glad and honored to be part of this conversation. I actually come from Switzerland, but I was living in Sweden prior to coming to America. My mother is from Switzerland and my father is from Angola in Africa. And I would like to share with you a story, a personal story of healing and also of seeing with generous eyes. And I thank you very much for inviting me to share my story today. I went back to Angola when I was 30, and my story starts 2 years before, where I was practicing energy healing with a teacher, and I have a friend who called me and he told me, oh, you know, there is a Jennifer who is at the hospital. And I was like, oh, really? What's going on? And it's a Senegalese friend who used to organize tours in Senegal and all West Africa with Swiss people. And Jennifer was part of this tour. They went to Senegal and they spent one month together there. And upon her return to Switzerland, she had an infection in her gallbladder, and the doctors had to operate her. And Alassane knew that I was kind of into natural medicine, and Alassane is my Senegalese friend. He called me and he asked me if I could do something for her to alleviate the pain. And so I said, yes, of course. And I tried to follow this synchronicity that Charles speaks about, being a bit overwhelmed, not knowing really what to do. So I felt like sitting meditation and trying to recollect the different points of, you know, Chinese medicine and Qigong. I used to teach Qigong, so I knew the Qigong healing aspect. And then something told me not to touch anyone until I get to the hospital. And so I followed this sign and I encountered many people on my way to the hospital that I could have given my hand or shake hands with, but I kind of followed the message. I arrived in the room and there were 5 doctors that were gathered around her bed, and the doctors were talking about the surgery that was happening next morning. And then I took the advantage to ask them, is it okay if I give a massage, a foot massage to Jennifer? And then they said, yes, of course. And then everybody left and my hands were very warm and I was feeling like, oh, you know, it's another Qigong feeling. And so as soon as I put my hands on her, she immediately fell asleep, immediately, like from 1 second after the other. And then I felt an amazing feeling through me. And it was almost like it was flowing for me as well. And then it happened maybe 20 minutes of a massage, and I couldn't even think what I was doing. It was just, basically was just feeling this love, and I couldn't use any of my techniques. And then I just left. She was still sleeping. And the next morning, Alassane calls me and he tells me, oh, what did you do to Jennifer? And I was like, oh, what happened? How was the surgery? And then he told me there was no surgery. And I was like, oh, why? And then he told me the doctors came and then they didn't understand what happened. They took a scan and the gallbladder was completely normal. And then I was like, oh, really? And then I wanted to talk to Jennifer, and then he said, oh, but she already left the hospital. They said this is kind of a miracle, and she can, I mean, they don't know what happened, but there is no need for her to stay in the hospital. I'm sharing this story because then my teacher told me, you are a healer now. You should, you know, portray yourself as a healer. So I said, okay. So I asked someone who had Lyme disease for a long time, a friend of mine, to come, and I even said to her, you know, I can maybe heal you and things like that, because I was thinking I should follow what my teacher was saying. And then I did one time, I tried to reproduce the same thing, nothing happened. And since then, I kind of was afraid, because I felt a bit ashamed, you know, and I didn't do any healing anymore. And now comes to my second part of the story, is when I was 30, I came back to Angola for 5 years. And there was an employee of my company that called me 5 in the morning saying her son is dying. And her son was 3 years old, 2 days in the coma, in the hospital already. And then I said, but where are you? And then she told me the name of the hospital. It was a very poor and not well organized hospital. And I said, I'm coming immediately. And so I took my wife, together we went to the hospital, and the child was already having all yellow under his eyelids. He had a cerebral malaria. So it shows that it was already infecting the entire body. So we took him, we brought him to a very good hospital. We drove fast, we arrived there. The doctors, they did give him quinine, the blood transfusion, and the doctor said 90% of the children, they die of malaria because of malnutrition. It's not because of the plasmodium itself, it's because of anemia. They don't have enough iron in their blood. So he was giving all this speech that he's not gonna make it. And then came back this memory, and I put my hands on him and I tried to invoke this love again, and then he died in my wife's arms, and so I'm linking this story to seeing with generous eyes, because this is a prime example of, you know, the fact that it's not the result that counts, because I felt so much love flowing also for this child, and seeing death and life being in this generosity, supporting life in the case of Jennifer, and supporting death in the case of Cristiano. The most important was to be there and to do what we can. And also this story shows me how it's actually possible to have this more beautiful world that, Charles, you say that our heart know it's possible. And I think it's not only our hearts, like you write it in the last chapter of your book, it's also our mind, you know, it's possible, and our soul. And also in that first story, to know that our body and the physical realm also knows it's possible. It's possible to transcend the blockages of the body. It's possible. Everything is possible if we are fully in this hope. And I think the difference between the two stories is that in the first one, Jennifer had hope, Alassane had hope, I had hope, my teacher had hope, everybody had hope. And in the second story, nobody had hope. So I wanted just to say one more thing, is that Charles, you said that we sacrifice our identification to a belief system that is in us. And I think I kind of sacrifice this identification with the healer, because like you very well said in the beginning of this conversation, it's ultimately source that is the gift. It's not we, and we are just a vessel, and we cannot choose when it's going to come, but it can come. And I wanted to testimony that it can come because it happened to me.
Thank you, Claudio, for that story. I'm sure everybody can feel the presence of this story. And I'm just going to let it operate on us a little bit and not hurry to interpret it or comment. So, but I would just encourage us actually to take, half a minute or so to revisit the images the story evoked. One big difference between the first part of the story and the second is that in the first part, you were not trying to be a healer. And in addition to the hope aspect, that's another aspect that distinguishes the two. I believe in both you were a healer. Death is not the ultimate catastrophe from the soul's point of view. Yeah. So thank you. Claudia, unless you want to say anything more, I'd like to honor your story by not saying too much about it, but you're welcome to add more if you would like to. You're muted though. So
Yes, I would like to add another portion that comes to me is that a few months later, the death of the 3-year-old boy in my wife's arms, my wife and I, we felt very much like going to an orphanage and trying to help a child. And we had discussed about that for a long time. This just came as a very fervent and intense message. And we found it happened that a friend of ours is an attorney and told us out of the blue, oh, I help sometimes people to adopt children. And then was like, oh, really? And because in Angola, it's very rare that there is a full adoption. They don't have this idea so much in the cultural mindset. It's people from the orphanage are more like to support at home and things like that. So we went to an orphanage that the attorney showed us, and we immediately found a child that was the youngest, and she was in such a bad situation health-wise. She was 1.5-year-old, Ivania, and she became our daughter, our second daughter. All the paperwork we managed, so many difficulties, but we managed. And I gave her the Swiss passport. She came to Switzerland with us, and I think this is part of the healing of this second portion, and also maybe understanding that things would have been maybe different, and we don't know exactly what happens in life. We can't know, like you said, Charles, we can't know the way, but we can know the next step. And when we say that when things fall away, we can ask ourselves, what are the things that don't fall away? And I would like to just say that what didn't fall away throughout the 3 stories is the love the love that is always there. And I hope we can keep this love together as a community throughout the very difficult times that we are facing and that we will be facing even more, I believe.
Beautiful, beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing this and for living that story.
Thank you so much, Charles. Thank you, everybody.
Yeah, thank you, Claudio. Okay, so wow, it's gonna be a interesting transition to the next one. So are you ready, Charles?
Yes.
Okay, so our next guest is Sarah. She's a NAS community member, of course, and I also get to meet her and stay with her twice now, with her and me. So this is one of the things that for me, I consider something that we're transitioning into, to use the internet in its best possible way to connect to people in a real way. So, and Sarah lives in Asheville, North Carolina. And thank you, Sarah, for coming up to contribute your question and story with us. I'm gonna have you talk with Charles now.
Yeah. Thanks, Sarah. Just unmute yourself and.
Well, I really was hoping not to be the next person after like such a humbling story. So my heart is kind of out there. It's racing, but yeah, that is, I think, interesting. I don't know. My question was rather long. Because I was trying to convey this feeling of frustration that I have. When I took the course, I felt like I kind of got blissed out from your ideas. And like, I was also reading the book in tandem with the course, which was helping sink in a lot. And I just feel frustrated mostly in that I'm like, I don't know what my gift is. I feel like there's so much that I could do. And I'm almost in this, like a place of like choice paralysis. And how can I, just move forward in one direction when I'm like kind of distracted with so many options? Yeah.
Are you the one who I'm trying to remember from the questions where you have like kind of pressures or influence from your father, or is that another person? That was you. Yeah. So there's like kind of the practical thing, and you're doing nanny work and stuff like that, right? Very humble kind of work, which society does not say is, society, directly or indirectly says, well, that's not, a worthy way to spend your life. And sometimes it can be hard to distinguish what is coming from inside and what's coming from outside. Like, is it just society that thinks that, or maybe, you have a feeling too that this is not what I'm meant to be doing right now. And that's the feeling to pay attention to, because our world needs, probably needs nothing more than people giving loving care and enlightened attention to children. That doesn't mean that that's yours to do, but it means that maybe it's yours to do. It's not like an unworthy path. Society says it is through like economics, like you'll make a lot more money if you go into, hedge funds than into caring for children. But I don't think the world actually needs more hedge funds. So that's a rather extreme example. But it's really about, like, another thing I remember reading your post. Part of the generosity of the world, of the universe even, is that the role that we are meant to play, like as we are recruited into the bootstrapping of the more beautiful world our hearts know is possible, the role that we're meant to play feels good. It feels exciting. It feels like, yeah, I want to do that. It's not that you have to fight what you really want to do in order to go about the grim business of fulfilling your duty. That wouldn't be a very generous universe if that were the case. It's like there'll be a feeling of joy and of excitement, of lightness. Like, yeah, I'm trying to backtrack, Heike, right? Like this feeling of excitement in an adventure, you know? So to learn to trust that, which is actually to trust the generosity of the universe, requires a lot of unlearning that the right thing is the hard thing. To tune into that feeling of like what actually feels exciting, what choice that lies before me is makes me feel happy and excited to wake up in the morning. And what happens if I just trust that? It may not conform to what your father thinks is the right path. It may not conform to what your rational mind thinks is the right path. But like for me, when there's so many choices, so many paths, and each one of them has all kinds of reasons why I should choose that one. All kinds of financial reasons, all kinds of ethical reasons. You know, this isn't going to help the world, and that is, and like, how do I choose? It's a maze. How do I choose? I have to choose by something else. And it's not that my knowledge of the world and of the impact of what I do has no effect, but I trust my mind to process that, and then I choose. Well, I would like to say that I do. I'm working at it, but to choose from the heart, which is, what do I care about? What makes me feel happy and excited? What makes me like, what is part of receiving the gift of life? Oh, I get to do that. I like doing that. Yeah, I can end there. Maybe if you have anything to add, or maybe that's enough.
Yeah, I think I do have like a touch more because I transitioned into nannying because I was following that feeling. And now I have a sense that it's time for me to let go and move into something else. But I like, holy cow, don't even know what that is. And part of me becomes so depressed where I want to press the redo button on my life and just like, how do I redo this story? So,
Yeah. Okay. So just like intuitively, what I'm getting is that, yeah, it was the right choice when you made the choice. It was what you were meant to be doing, and now it isn't. And you recognize that, and your antenna is out for the next thing. And you have the gift of, maybe some stable nannying things that are going to support you as you open to the next thing, as you follow other leads, as you declare yourself open to it. And that declaration in its truth will, maybe if you believe in this, manifestation stuff, maybe it will magnetize those things to you, but at the very least, it will attune you to looking for them and saying it out loud. And like, maybe you talk about it on NAS, maybe you talk about it, you put it out there to your friends, and ideas come in and opportunities, and one of them you're like, ooh, that feels exciting, and I'm going to follow that. And I have this base, like you're being taken care of by the nannying. It wasn't a mistake, and it is also no longer yours to do. That seems reasonable. Yeah. Yeah. So thanks, Sarah. Yeah. Thank you. And thank you for just sharing this vulnerable thing, with so many people. And, also, like, I can guarantee you that you're not the only one facing this kind of thing. So
Yeah, I was gonna say that too. Sarah, you're young, and it's very natural to go through a sorting process. And I remember myself having being in that place, not knowing what to do next, and nothing that came out feels exciting. So I remember what I did was like, okay, then I'll settle with the next peaceful things, and that built, yeah. So we're here with you and for you. So thank you, Sarah. So see you very soon. So August is our next guest. Hi, August, and August is from Belgium, right, August?
I'm actually from Texas. I
From
moved
Texas.
I moved to Belgium this year.
Oh, well, welcome you, and I'd love to hear your inquiry and questions with Charles.
Yeah, thank you. I think my inquiry has been basically answered by being invited to join this session and hearing everybody's amazing stories. First of all, I just wanted to say about Sarah's story. It's like pretty much all the little phrases she used, like blissed out and then choice paralysis and then hitting the redo button on every single one of those. I was like, yeah, that's it. That's what I'm feeling. So yeah, you're definitely not alone. I think a lot of people are feeling like that these days. So my inquiry on NAS was, am I getting something out of this course? And I think my question's already been answered, just by listening to these amazing stories and feeling nourished by them. And I think that's part of the problem, is that I want to make the story about me, like, what am I getting about this? Like, where's the result, the visible result? And yeah, so I thought about a million things, before, what am I going to say? How am I going to, ask this question to Charles? I don't know. I think, I think my question is kind of answered, and it's, just what you just talked about, Charles, that there's, I don't know, like, where I'm going or what's pushing me in the right direction, and what are the choices I need to make. But there is some, like, very subtle underlying feeling like, yeah, this is a good idea. You should take that living in the gift course. Like, even though you're unmotivated and you're not trying very hard, that thing is good for you.
Uh-huh.
So
yeah, I mean, this is not the thing that, it's not like a Tony Robbins power weekend, where you're going to be all galvanized to, like, take life by the horns, and change your whole life and find motivation where you had none and stop procrastinating and I'm going to be on it. It's not, for some people, actually, it does have that effect, but that's not my intention. And I would say that there is something in one of the sessions, like if you would just take one thing with you, like because there's a lot of material in this course and some of the mantras are very, very powerful. And it's kind of, what I have done is offered a sampler of different things. People are not going to like apply every single one. Well, most people aren't. Some people have them like on the refrigerator and stuff and have composed haiku with each one. But if there's one that lodges inside of you, maybe just visit that one and you'll be like, oh yeah, and trust it to work in you,
Okay.
Yeah. And as long as you've put, the way to not get anything at all from the course is to not put anything into it. If you just like kind of listen to some of the sessions and you don't like actually give it attention and you don't do the exercises and, then you'll get as much from it as you would get from going and watching somebody take horseback riding lessons.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and maybe it's not for you. Like maybe you go watch the horseback riding lessons. You're like, yeah, I don't think I want to ride a horse, and that's fine. Yeah.
Yeah. I think it is for me though. And now that you've mentioned the mantras, that was one thing I thought of, and I thought it was really cool because I like these pithy phrases that wake up something in you and they just keep coming back to you. So maybe if I may, I just briefly like to share these two Chinese sayings that I think are kind of good mottos for the NAS story and for what I'm feeling right now. And the first one I wrote in my post was Wu Ji Bi Fan. And Patsy gave a perfect example. It's like she got so afraid and she thought the fear was going to kill her. And then when it was so bad that she thought she was going to die, it just like dissipated. Like once things get to this extreme, it's just like, oh, the other way. So yeah, I think that's a very hopeful saying for like, we're this far with separation, but interbeing is like it's about to fall down and we're just going to go into interbeing. So maybe that's where that baseline hope comes from, that I feel like, yeah, I don't know what this is doing for me, but I think it's good. And the second one is Qian Yi Mo Hua, like to be imperceptibly influenced by something you don't know what it's doing, and maybe only you realize like 5 years later, oh yeah, that was a good idea. I'm glad I did that. Otherwise, this wouldn't have happened. Mm-hmm. So, yeah.
Yeah, beautiful. Yeah, thank you.
Can I ask one random question? Do you know Michael Wynn?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, hold on.
Because you live in Asheville, right?
No, I used to live in Asheville, but the name is familiar. Yeah, I'm trying to remember if I met him. No. Yeah. Okay. But I don't have to say no, I don't really know him. No.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Thank you, Charles.
Yeah. Thanks.
Well, thank you, August. It feels so comforting to hear you use Chinese phrases, the one character.
Yeah.
English, you have to explain with like 2 paragraphs.
Yeah. Uji Bifan, that one, Uji Bifan, is like very hopeful for our current times too in the world, because things seem pretty extreme, and I'm ready for something else.
Fun part.
So nice to meet you, August. And believe it or not, at first I thought you were a female, although you have a masculine name. but somehow I picked up some feminine energy in you. But seeing you, this gorgeous man, I thought, oh, um, it's, I pick up something that, is probably also part of you too, the nurturing, soft, evolving, like the in aspect. But anyway, I was surprised.
Yeah. Thank you, Patsy. That's nice to hear that. Funny story, when I registered for high school, they were like, okay, yeah, we're here to register August. And then the lady said, oh, where is she?
Oh, wow.
I was like, no, it's me.
Yeah.
Well,
So,
thank you.
so I wasn't far off. Okay. So,
oh, yeah.
Nice, August. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. So, wow, that's also very beautiful. And our next guest is Sally Ross. So Sally made a beautiful sharing in a video form, and I really like her story because her story that she encountered involved like some celebrity, right? Sally? Yeah. Anyway, Sally is from Canada. Welcome you, and I'll let you tell your story.
Thank you, Patsy. Hi, Charles.
Hi, Sally.
Nice
Welcome.
to see you. Thank you so much. Thank you, Patsy, for suggesting I tell the story again. I'm sure there might be people on here that have already seen it. I had a random encounter with a stranger about a week and a half ago, and this person was so, I loved earlier, Charles, you used the word transmission station of the gift as being like when we're embodying that from source, from, not knowing that we're not imagining ourselves as being the giver of the gift. And this person was such a transmission in that way. And I encountered him in a moment that it was really meaningful for me, but also because he was such a transmission of so many aspects of the course. So I have to bring the story down from like 10 minutes to just a few, so I'll try to do that. Yes, a week and a half ago, I traveled to Vancouver for medical treatment. And the night before I received that treatment, I was out on a walk. I was staying in an Airbnb, and I was really feeling the heartbreak of the drought. It's just, I'm really like that my province right now, I could probably get into tears about it because I really feel the depth of the fires and the drought. And I live in Vancouver Island, and, we're in a so-called temperate rainforest area. And we're just, it's a really hard thing to experience, and just see how nature is being dried up, literally. So, and I was also, I lived in Vancouver for many years, almost 10 years when I was in my 20s. I went to UBC and did 2 degrees there. In fact, that's when I first encountered your work. So that was many years ago now. And I went out, took myself out on a walk, and I rounded this corner on the way back to the Airbnb. And suddenly there was this beautiful, shining, turns out very tall, Black man sitting in a wheelchair. And the light shining from his eyes was just instantly like, boom, I just wanted to enter his field just right there. And he looked at me and he said, I saw you walking earlier. He must have seen me when I came around the corner before I looped back. He said, you hold a good clip for someone of your height. And so I didn't really know how to respond to that, but I mean, just feeling his instant energy of welcome, I just was immediately there, and I was by myself in the city. And so it was just an immediate moment of yes. And so I approached him, we began to talk, and I said, well, walking looks very different for you than it does for most people, doesn't it? And he began to tell the story of how 10 years ago, he had an accident on a roller coaster and became a quadriplegic. He was paralyzed from the neck down, rushed to hospital, and he basically, the prognosis was not very good, and they had to operate. The doctor told him, he did have his voice at that moment in time. The doctor told him that they would have to operate through the front of his neck to get to the disc that they needed to replace. And now the background to this man is that, I guess, Patsy, he would have been a celebrity on some level. He had a singer-songwriter career and a performance career. He was in the Temptations for a while, Charles. Remember? You know the Temptations.
Yeah.
My girl, my girl.
Yeah.
And then he ended up in Vancouver in the late 90s, and he was performing ever since, and he had his own band and everything. Soul, gospel, R&B, that was kind of his style. And so he was told by the doctor, like, anything can happen here. You might lose your voice completely. You might, major vocal tone changes or whatever. And he basically had to decide between the possibility of being able to walk again or the possibility of never speaking again. That was sort of, not knowing any results or what the result would be. So he went for the surgery, and he fully recovered his voice. And he can walk, but he showed me, he kind of got up and he showed me how he walks with a cane. But in the conversation, it was just such a reminder and reflection of all the things that we're focusing on in this course and on NAS. And like some of the things he said to me, like he quoted the Buddha as saying, the world will always have enough for what we need, and it will never have enough for our greed. And he, one thing that I forgot to share in the video that he shared was, I want to feel myself as if I'm a seed, who's giving itself to grow and be shared and just blossom. So he's basically intuitively teaching all the principles of the course as we're talking. So everything that we talked about, and then he was super curious about my life, and I'm in this process of basically emerging from a lifetime of severe and debilitating chronic pain and illness. This is my gift that I'm sharing. I've got a seed as I've been working in integrative health counseling and coaching with a number of clients over the past 2.5 years. And want to grow that a lot more with having more energy and less pain, which is the pain that I was living with was so unbearable that I didn't even know if I was going to make it this year. Like I was very much ready to make my transition after so many years of agony. And, it was just like, and when he stood up, he's 6'7". That's how the whole conversation started. Like, and him just noticing how I'm walking because, he's just sort of checking out the scene and checking out all the people. And one of his things about how he perceived his possible recovery was that, all the bad prognoses are always coming at you from the medical side of things, right? And all that's not going to go well, of course. And his language was like, in his mind, he said, "Doctor, that's not how I roll." And so he had this very deep passion for knowing that he could, and he has a very deep faith as well, like very deep Christian faith. And he said things like, I knew that if I put my faith in God, that God would make sure that I'm always at peace and that I can move through this in a good way. And he did a lot of anti-bullying work, and I think he continues to like share his story and, give people a lot of motivation about healing. And so, yeah, and there are a couple of other things that he said that I may have shared on the other video, but one of the things, he did talk about like giving, the principle of giving as an actual receiving when it's given with gratitude, when it's given with, the desire to just simply share and not have expectation about the result, and how that's experienced as a giving, and how we never run out of that feeling to give, which, we've talked about in the course as well. And then as we're about to part, he said, I want to complete my life as if I'm an old shriveled up lemon that has had all the juice squeezed out of it. And and it was just like such an incredible, like, in the midst of that sort of real grief I was experiencing, and just you know that instant feeling when that human is like, it's all soul there, it's all love there, and you just communicate and interact in that field, and everything is safe, and everything is given and received, and there's more and more and more in the conversation. So yeah, it was really beautiful. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and this image of this man watching, if he's watching you, he's watching everybody, right?
Yeah.
And appreciating them. And
exactly.
Most people probably don't stop to talk to him.
Yeah.
So whatever gift of words you could give them is not available if you don't stop and talk to him. If you just ignore him. And it made me think of the angels in our midst,
Mm-hmm.
the ones that are in human form and the ones that are not in human form, and the idea that we're always being watched and appreciated. And sometimes they pop up in human form. In the course, did I tell the story about the guy and the cell phone and the panhandler?
No, not that I remember.
Well, it's like, yeah, this guy told me this story where he was in a really depressed state, just really down on life and unmotivated, and yes, really, in a downward spiral. And he's walking down the street in a kind of sketchy part of town, and this panhandler comes up and he's like, "Hey, let me borrow your phone." And like, how often do you, it's like some grungy guy wants to borrow your phone, but he's like, "Okay, yeah, sure, man." And he gives him his phone. And then the guy looks at him, hands the phone right back, and says, "Live, brother." And like that totally changed the guy's.
Right.
Yeah.
I think you may have told that story elsewhere.
I've told it somewhere before.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. But just like, why would someone demand your phone and then give it right back? So yeah, there are angels in our midst, and yeah. So thank you so much for.
Yeah. And I just want to add one thing too, and I briefly touched on this in the video, because right before I made the video, I'd finished session 8, so with Orland's interview, because there's so much in there that I've been working with the praxis of the kind of gift that he's pointing to. And I was thinking when Sarah was talking actually about that way of looking, that way of seeing, where the gift is not what we think we need to give, or the gifts that we know are inside us to give, but it goes deeper than that in terms of the transmutation of energy around what we're taking up from the world to find out the next level of how that can become the gift. And I think there's so much of that in those of us that illness as initiation has been forced upon our journey on some level, or has been chosen for our journey, with our journey, is that we are constantly needing to find that space where that which we're uptaking, because we don't really have a choice, needs to be worked with in a way that we're transmuting it into what the next emergence of gift from that it can be seen, how it can be seen, or how it can be revealed. And so, yeah, I learned a lot.
Are you mostly out of pain?
There's an inflammatory process that's always underway at a lower level than like I'm doing so much better. And I want to participate way more in NAS. Like I want to do way more and share more and communicate more. Excruciating chronic head pain has been part of the picture, and that's why I kind of dropped out mostly for a few months, because I could barely be on the computer. But no, I'm doing so much better. I'm so excited and just so ready to collaborate and find my tribe and my people, and and find more people to help. I have so much to give now, and through the realm, mostly through compassionate inquiry, which is I did the year-long training with Gabor, and it's such a foundational place that I'm working with in myself and with clients now too. So yeah,
great. Well, thank you, Sally.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. And I guess turn it back over to Patsy. Patsy, you're muted.
Yeah, thank you, Sally. I was just gonna say that welcome your help in NAS, because we have the next project that's coming up that we will welcome a lot of helping hands to help build local communities. Yeah. So our next guest is Joel. Um, Joel is from Mexico, and I think his story is relating to soldiers and military experience. I thought that was pretty amazing, you know. So thank you, Joel. Love to have you here to share your story with everyone.
Yeah, awesome. I'm super curious as well. So yeah, tell us.
Yeah, hi. Am I on? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Hey, hi, Charles and Patsy. Hello, everyone. It's really an honor to be here and to be able to share my story. So my name is Joe. I'm not from Mexico. I'm actually from the Philippines. But I've been working with the United Nations on and off since 2007. And my first station was in Jerusalem. So one author said that Jerusalem is one of those places where the story of humanity is played out very intensely all the time. It's in your face all the time. And for me, the story of humanity is the story of separation, which I first heard from you, Charles. Good versus evil, us versus them. You know, the long high wall that separates Israel from the West Bank and Gaza. You cannot be literally separate than that, right? And there's a line that is drawn in the middle of the city. No Palestinian can live up to the west of the line, and most of the Jews stay away from the east side of the city. And soon enough, I was caught up in the story of us versus them. And nowhere was it more visceral than whenever I would have to cross a border or a checkpoint, which was almost every day. So in this story of separation, I saw the young soldiers as the enemy. Whenever I would stop at a border crossing or a checkpoint, I would feel my body stiffen, my amygdala would send the alarm off, and to get the body ready for a fight or flight response. So I was worried, I was serious, I was alert, and it had its consequences. So not a few times I was detained, not a few times I was delayed, not a few times the soldiers insisted on inspecting the vehicle, which was a violation of international law. And for a lawyer like me, it was hard to let them do that, and that even worsened the whole situation. So I left Jerusalem in 2011, and then I returned in 2017. In many ways, nothing has changed, but something has changed. And that was, by this time, I had managed to include as part of my life regular contemplative practice. With this practice, I'm able to better see the workings of my mind. I could recognize as soon as I was getting triggered, and with it, the opportunity to find a more skillful, a kinder response. So whenever I would approach a border crossing, I would do some or all of these practices. So my teacher calls this first one stealth metta. So I would bring to mind the soldiers at the border crossing, and then I would send them wishes. May you be well, may you be safe, may you be free from suffering, may you live a life of ease and joy. And then I would try to remind myself to always keep a beginner's mind, a don't know mind, as one of my teachers says, to see clearly that my preconceptions and judgments against the soldiers really had no basis in fact. And then I oriented my mind to see the soldiers as just like me, with the same hopes and dreams, with the same fears for their family and for themselves, with people whom they love and who love them. There's this Buddhist concept of living in widening circles. I love that term, living in widening circles, and seeing everyone as family, and eventually as not separate from me, which is the interbeing that you, Charles, beautifully writes and talks about. And then there's the Dalai Lama's wonderful practice of trying to see new people that he meets as old friends. And then right before crossing, I would take a few deep breaths and, activating my parasympathetic nervous system. And I have to say that the quality of the interactions changed so much. I would be smiling as I roll down my window, and I would say makore, which is a colloquial Hebrew for saying, how are you? And it almost never fails to elicit a smile from the soldiers. So with his generous eyes, I was able to see the soldiers as old friends, as family, as just like me. And just one concrete example of how the interactions became so good. One time, as I was waiting for my papers, one of the leaders of the soldiers offered me coffee brewed from his special coffee equipment. Entirely unheard of. So that was one of those moments. And really, it was about a change in my mind's orientation, as Charles says. Mm-hmm. And in my case, my meditation practice has definitely helped me cultivate this orientation. Mm-hmm. So that's it. Thank you for having me. Yeah. Thank you, Charles, for being in the world and for all the work that you do. And I hope I can be more active in the community and somehow help.
Yeah. Well, Joel, thank you so much for that. It's such a beautiful illustration of seeing with generous eyes. It's just another way to put it. Like and this is one of the, I don't know if I said it in this course, but I like to say it, that the story we hold about somebody invites them into that story. So the story of, oh yeah, you're an old friend. We are kindred. We are children of the same creator, or whatever version of it you have. Like, and it's like you're actually in that story and expectation. It's a really powerful invitation, and it doesn't necessarily like always work, but yeah, it's pretty strong, to invite to hold that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I try to do the same when I'm going through like, security checkpoints, at the airport or customs or something like that.
Sure.
I'm like, I kind of like feel like, oh boy, I get to meet somebody, or like, I feel like almost a delight, little bit of adventure, like, oh yeah, a new person. Yeah. And just, sometimes it doesn't work. It doesn't bear those results, but very often it does. Yeah.
Yes, thank you, Joel. Yes.
And Patsy, you had something you wanted to share also, right?
Yes, seeing with the generous eyes. I have so two. One is a really quick one, but they're a similar thing. It's just a different version, and one is relevant to the currently what happened with the community. So the first one was, I see sometimes like angels working places like Home Depot. Like I go to Home Depot, go through a cashier one time, and whenever I meet strangers like you, I get excited. I just want to kind of connect from the soul and love level, even for a second. So this lovely older women, and she said that I love my job. Every morning I can't wait to get up, have a cup of my favorite coffee, and go to Home Depot and work in the cashier so I can love people up when they come through my station. Like for example, and she's a retired woman, and I spoke to her, and she's actually very well read and very educated, sophisticated African American lady. She had been through a lot of life, and then in her 60s she decided to do that. It's like, wow, how generous she is, and the second thing is the story recently had unfolded right after you published the very controversial essay, a very long one, which I didn't read because it's so long. And then later on, like a couple of weeks later, I noticed that it stirred up a lot of things, including your publisher publicly canceling you. I read that because it's short. And then another public speakers kind of picking you apart, criticizing, and like it's just really difficult to read. So I read that, thinking that, wow, if I didn't really understand what you wrote and who you are, reading those, it would be so easy for me to label you as this evil person spreading vengeance in the world. But at the same time, I also know that no, that's not you. So I get really angry and upset, stirred up, and also from that anger, I move into a sense of despair and hopelessness, thinking that why are we doing this? We can just close down everything. In fact, I called you on that. I call you to tell you just that. So that's just stay with our own friends and family circle who know us, who know our heart, who and our sincerity to help making a change in the world. We could just do that, no problem. We can live the rest of our life just doing that without stirring up the waves. But then you say something, which you say something very encouraging. You said, just don't give that any attention. And then a day later, you publish two articles. One is to clarify the point that you're being attacked. I read that. I thought, wow, I wonder if people who have read that first and then go into your article, would they be able to pay more attention? Kind of like an introduction in a very thick book. You kind of guide them to what to look for in the essay. So I thought that is one thing that come up. And the second one was the letter that you shared in our community only, specifically to remind people to see, to view these circumstances with generous eyes. So I wonder if I feel like reading it, Charles, but it might take me like 3 to 5 minutes to read it. Okay. So you're muted, but I assume that you say yes because you nod your head.
Yes. Go ahead.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm gonna read it. Hi everyone. I made this request on the common thread to my last article posted, but I'm repeating it here to make sure that it is seen. I'm grateful for the support comments here as well as the more challenging ones. It is indeed quite an interesting situation. I do have a request though. It comes out of some clarity I have that I must avoid all cost any kind of war against those who have made the accusation against me. First, because I don't want to make this about me. My experience is one of millions and rather insignificant compared to people losing their jobs, let alone what happens during real mob violence. Making it about me, about what so and so said, about various big personalities, distracts from the content of what I wrote about, which is much more important. So while I do appreciate the supportive impulses, I'd like to make this focus away from what certain public figures are saying about me. The reason I wrote this small follow-up was truly not in self-defense. I realized that there were some significant misreadings, understandable in the heat of the issue, that needed clearing. Secondly, certain forces, social and psychological, thrive off fighting. They love a good drama. I love drama too, but in this case, I'd rather not put any energy into drama of conflict and instead put it into the next chapter of the essay, which is about transcending, I don't know how to say that word, Girardian dynamics of scapegoating and dehumanization. Unfortunately, I seem to have become a controversial person bordering on radioactive, which might limit the reach of my words. All I can do to counter that is to maintain courtesy, reason, and peace in what I write. and avoid attacking my critiques, I would like to request something similar of you. Of course, you can defend the ideas I put forth in the essay, but please do it out of service to the ideas and not out of personal loyalty to me. The latter would be a dangerous path, since I am as fallible as the next person. I'm sure at least one or two things in the essays were mistaken or misleading. It is inevitable. As to the various public figures who have denounced me, please let's not give energy to that whole drama. I think the analysis of what some of them have said that I've seen here is useful and illuminating. I think these public figures are mistaken in their critiques, so I'm not actually criticizing any of the comments here, just reminding others and myself not to let it slide into ill wishes or dehumanization of the critiques, because that is the same scapegoating pattern. They are simply doing what humans beings do in situation they are in. So after I read this letter that you wrote to our community, that kind of changed my energy completely. I went from angry and fear and desperation to hope and feel empowered, knowing that, wow, even in a situation like this, I get to decide where I want to focus to really shape my world. And so I want to finish up with a quote that I received from a book called Cloud Atlas that's my mantra and reminder. So that quote is, each crime and every kindness birth our future. So that's my reminder when I want to issue accusation, judgment, or opinions towards what I perceive. I ask myself, what am I doing? Thank you, Charles, for me to share that.
Yeah, beautiful. Each crime and every kindness births the future. It's so true. And that quote reminds us of our actual power. You know, it's not each crime and every kindness that goes viral or that is seen or that, you know, there's no qualification there. Each crime and every kindness births the future. Nothing is wasted. Nothing is wasted. And it goes back to you know, the choice of how to live our lives. Is it okay just to be a nanny? Just to be a nanny, just to be a kindergarten teacher, just to work at Home Depot? Our power does not lie in how big or small the role that we have. And that's something that we know. We know that. Everybody knows it. So thanks for bringing that truth into our awareness, Patsy.
Oh, I'm part of the whole beautiful truth and world. I'm so honored and happy and to be here with you. So Charles, if you don't have anything else you want to add, I want to close our event today, and I want to tell everyone that there is a gathering in 15 minutes, and you can access, for our community to continue on the conversation. That is going to be facilitated by Sherry, who is on the live chat and our facilitator, and Todd. And if you'd like to join, go there and click on the link, and the password is gift. Thank you very much. Namaste.
Thanks, Patsy. Thank you, everybody.
Bye.